Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for another filmmaker Q&A. We hope you've watched the film Swivel, which you can find on our website as part of the festival. If you haven't, we suggest you go and watch that first and then join us back here for the Q&A with the director Lois. And I'm going to pass over to Lois now and let her introduce herself to you a bit more and explain what she does. Okay, so welcome Lois, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, so Lois Norman, and I had the concept and direction and all the fiddly bits of the editing process to start off with for my gender fluid dance film Swivel, starring trailblazing Iron and Sparks.
Perfect, thank you. And would you be able to tell us a little bit more about Iron and Sparks for those of us who are not accustomed?
I'd love to. So Iron and Sparks are Henry T. Art and Rachel Sparks, and I'm sure if they were here, they could tell you exactly who they are and exactly what they're about very articulately, and I wish they were. But from my point of view, when I was looking to make a film that dealt with human connection without words, I automatically, of course, thought of the body and dance and movement. And when I was thinking about how you express something that doesn't rely on labels of gender or anything other than just a human being, I was made aware of Rachel's work initially, and she does gender neutral dancing, and I thought, well, that sounds intriguing. And then I saw she worked with Henry, and then I started to see the kind of work that they did, which was essentially, we often see in ballroom dance, you might see somebody who assumes the role of the man, but they're the woman, and, you know, the other way around and that kind of thing. But what I hadn't seen before was where there were almost no rules, and it was quite intuitive and really subtle and nuanced in terms of the body and the impulses of how you work. And for me, that's what I wanted to explore in the film, is when you've got nothing to rely on, when it's just you being vulnerable in a space. I needed two people who not only had the skills to do that, but had the relationship, the strength of their relationship to be able to convey that the way that they do. So I persuaded them gradually if they would work with me on Swivel, and they did.
Thank you very much. I'd love to hear more about the style of the film, because it's obviously very much about this dance that happens between the two, and it's so fluid and so smooth and very relaxing to watch as well. And I wondered how you went about filming that.
Yeah, it was quite a long process. The actual shoot was seriously short, and Terrell, who was our DOP, basically had it on a gimbal and did it. She was, very visceral, active cinematographer, and she's in amongst it. But before that, there was a lot of planning of understanding, first of all, what the choreography was about, because I went with the concept, not dance moves or music necessarily, although I'd had the cello song for Charlie in my head for 20 years, waiting to use it somewhere. And then Henry and Rachel went away for about 7 hours in the studio and finessed it, and I came in and out, and Terrell came in and out, and then finally we were a rainy weekend in Pontardawe Arts Centre in Wales, and we got in amongst it basically and shot it sort of in sequence with a wide shot on the whole dance. In terms of being relaxing, I wanted it to be very much about the very beginning of it, not being relaxing, about that part of yourself that is on guard almost, that, particularly as queer people, there's a lot of reasons why we might want to protect ourselves emotionally and in relationships and everything else. I think, it can be a very hard road to travel in lots of ways, depending on your background, your generation, and all of those things. So I didn't want it to be just a lovely dance film and there we are, it's all great, isn't, they're twirling around and oh, there we are, the kids at the end. The beginning was supposed to be hard, and they had to earn the eye contact and they had to earn it. So in order to do that sonically, at the very beginning of the film, there's ice skates, ice swirling on ice. And I took that with Gemma Challa, who's the sound designer, took that sound and the sound of the bow coming off the cello, and we fused that into a very dissonant way of being. So there wasn't a lovely harmony, and that was to reflect this really hard to be vulnerable, and how you have to earn that with yourself, and also turn around on yourself to look at you, and like what you see. So that was the bit, and then finally, in the slow motion, then I allowed the harmony, the melody of the cello, and then they reveal themselves to each other. Rachel very much, there's a piece of cloth, she unravels herself to be naked, and that's her sense of freedom, her character. And Henry's character is wrapping in the binder, and then sort of saying, "Do you like what you see? Is this okay?" And with their character, and Rachel saying, "Yes, it's fine." And ultimately, that was the journey of the film.
Yeah.
Having to earn that trust.
No, I think it's definitely a journey, and I think when you're watching it, it's because it's so seamless in the way it's shot. It's it's very easy to allow yourself to go on that journey as well without being distracted in a way by any other elements of the filmmaking process.
I'm glad you felt that. Yeah.
Yes,
because it wasn't easy. I wanted it to be that 4:00 in the morning feeling, where it's dark and there's nothing else, and you really have to kind of like, if not now, when.
Well, that's true. Actually, the lighting in it is stunning. How many crew members were involved with all of these little elements?
So the whole film was made by 9 people. On the day in the theatre, Rachel and Henry, Terrell on camera, me, and Terrell's wife Maggie, and my partner Antoinette. That was it. Yeah, a lot of planning. A lot of planning and a lot of understanding what we're all about, really. I think that was the most important thing, picking people who absolutely got what you were trying to do with the lighting. So Terrell was very much responsible for, creating a softbox and really, us designing all of those things. But if you've got the will, there's the way,
Yeah. What were the main challenges that you faced making the film, either technically or with the story?
I think as an independent filmmaker, there's always the challenge of budget and not being able to, give money the way that you would like to and is deserved. But for me, I think essentially everybody probably had their own challenges. But for me, it was the challenge of asking 2 dancers who have a seriously good relationship and a very good, product, if you like, that don't really need to make a film, if they will allow me in and trust me to present something that leaves them very vulnerable. So I was very lucky that I had Henry and Rachel who did trust me and let me in and helped me articulate something that I've been trying to articulate for a very long time, that I couldn't do. And I'll be eternally grateful for that.
Is gender identity or sexuality themes that you've explored in your work before this?
Not really. I worked in theatre for a long time, mainly assisting sort of the male journey and the male story as a female, director, queer director, trying to get in, and not always easy, and creating my own company and building from scratch. So I changed to film, and the first thing I did was do a documentary called She Is Juiced, which is about essentially four journeys of 4 different queer female artists. So, sorry, what was the thing you just asked me?
Have you explored the themes of sexuality or gender?
Yes, sorry, I just got completely lost in Sarah Jane Moon's slice then. So the last one of that was Sarah Jane Moon, who is a queer portrait artist based in London from New Zealand originally. And she's probably more than the other people in the film. She was all about sexuality and gender, and it's through her that I actually became aware of Rachel and Henry. But for me, essentially, the film, through a queer lens, unapologetically through that, it was almost going the other way, with rather than doing the LGBTQIA plus thing and going through that specific thing, it was, what if you haven't got anything? What if there's actually nothing? And that's what interested me, because that is something that universal, I think. Because I think we have to fight for all these different things because there's not equality, and absolutely right on all those levels. But essentially, we need allies and we need people underneath. We need to actually like who we are. I'm unapologetically a bisexual woman, identifying woman, and I'll always stand by all of those things. But I just found it really interesting to look at something that didn't rely on a gender.
And
It's very, very hard because most people, particularly in Britain, rely, because we rely just watching Mrs. America and that whole thing. I don't know if you've seen it, where we have to have these systems in place, because otherwise the whole of this kind of, nuclear heterosexual thing will fall to the ground, won't it? No, it won't.
And is that something you want viewers to take away from the film? What would you like audiences to leave feeling or thinking about?
I'd like them to leave thinking and feeling. Essentially, that's all you can hope for as a filmmaker. I'm never like an encyclopedia kind of person. I don't know all the films, all the filmmakers, all that kind of thing. But I know on any given day, like you and anybody else, you go in with a particular need. Something happened that day, which means that when you go and watch a film, there's a particular need. You need to laugh, or, you need to be taken somewhere else, or you need to look at something in a very truthful way, whatever that is. So whatever anybody comes into when they're sitting at home watching this, I hope it feeds something of what that need is. And if it's about thinking about something, that's great. And if it's about feeling something, well, that would be wonderful.
And do you personally have a queer filmmaker, or because you're from a theatre background, a queer theatre director or writer that you have admired or you feel has influenced your work in any way?
Do you know, it's less about the film. It's probably more about painting. It's probably more like, starting off, because it's sort of like Francis Bacon and, Laura Knight and people out there who are doing things, Louise Bourgeois, people who are doing things in the art world that were brave. And I think that's the thing for me. I'm drawn to bravery. I'm drawn to courage in whatever form that is. And if people push boundaries, if they go outside the city wall, risk going outside the city wall, like, Desert Hearts was one of my, films, and When Night is Falling, and they're both similar storylines where you have opposites and someone's risking going outside of that conformity. And I think it takes enormous courage, and, whether it's to do with a religion or it's to do with race, to step outside that acceptance that you have with people, to be all of who you are. Have that integrity and truth in who you are. I mean, that takes a lot of courage, and they're normally the characters and storylines I'm drawn to.
And what is next for you? What are you working on next? Are you working on any projects at the moment?
Well, the great thing about lockdown is needs repainting. So I have 5 films I'm storyboarding all over his wall at the moment, 4 of which have female queer characters and 1 has a female character. So how we get outside the walls to actually make the films is another story. But when we do, I think I'm ready. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I think that was my last question. So thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for sharing the film with us. I think it's also screening at another couple of festivals that are coming up.
Yes, I think Film Pride. It's out there doing that, and it's in America at Macon as well at the moment. So, and thank you so much for your inclusion, and it means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing the film with us. Thank you for joining us for the Q&A. To everyone else who's just watched, I hope you enjoyed the Q&A with us today, and please do go and watch the film if you haven't. It's called Swivel, and it's on our website until Sunday. So please do go and watch that and enjoy the film. Thank you very much.